Hello. Okay, so this is my first tutorial, so let's get it going. The video today, I'm going to convert a 2D PNG into a 3D icon using Blender. So the first thing I'm going to use is Illustrator. First thing I'm going to do is go to a website called Fluttercon, and this is where I'm sourcing my PNG from. You can download it for free, but please attribute the artist. You can also subscribe to their platform and download the SVG straight from there. So I'm going to download it, and we're going to bring it into Illustrator. Just copy and paste it into the middle of the screen. Center it, and then what you're going to do is, when you've selected it, go into the Properties tab, go all the way down to Quick Options, and select Image Trace. We're going to go for 6 color option, and this will convert it into a bit of a vector. We are then going to select Expand so that it actually makes it into a vector. After we've done that, you change it to the white arrow option and just select those top vertexes or top points and delete, so that it becomes a transparent image. Basically, we just want that white away, and so we're left with this. Then just ungroup it so all of them are different parts. What I have realized is this specific PNG, and this happens quite a lot when you expand an image trace. Sometimes the white behind the image is left. So what we want to do is, I'm just going to select those points, cut it so that I can paste it back when I'm done, delete the white parts, and then paste. Now our icon is nearly there. Now what we want to do is select the 2 yellow parts of the light, and I just want to take away that shading, because this will help me move around Blender a little bit easier. So I drop the 2 colors, or the preferred colors, both of them, then go down to Pathfinder and unite the 2 colors. I'm going to do the same for the bottom part. And then at the bottom one, do the same, select both colors, and I'm going to choose the darker color for this and unite. So now all colors are solid colors, and we should be able to now export it as a SVG to be able to put it into Blender. So go File, Export, Export as. You've got to go to the file you want to save it into, rename it, make sure that you're exporting as an SVG. Export, and then this drop down will come down. Make sure that you are doing the same settings as I've done it. Now with the fonts, you don't need to change this, but converting the fonts to outline means that it takes your fonts and it creates them into vectors rather than having font information. This is great if you had font, let's say for instance it said light bulb underneath this in a font, you'd want to export that as outlines, so that when you take it into Blender, it's not actually a font, but rather an image, a vector. So just follow these things. The minify And the response, I don't think it matters here, so just push OK, and our file should be a usable SVG. I'm just going to close Illustrator, go into Blender. So if you don't know what Blender is a 3D software, an open source 3D software that is completely free to use, and you can, however, donate to the developers, which would help them out a lot if you are able to do so. So we're going to go add new, select all. You can push A or drag your thing over, your arrow over, but I'm going to go select A, push A to select all, X, and enter to delete. So now what we want to do is bring in the SVG. So go edit, properties, there's a setting we need to change. Go to add-ons, search SVG, and over here you'll get a little setting that you need to click. I've already clicked it. Make sure you click it and refresh. You don't need to refresh, but I think it helps. Okay, now what we're going to do is a little trick. You push F4 to bring down drop down menu, go down to SVG, make sure that it is the bottom SVG and not the third one from the top. Go to the file, select the SVG and import into your scene. Now, as you can see, the SVG is super small. Press A to select all or drag over, but A to select all, then push S for scale and drag it out. Get it as big as you want. As you can see, each of these little things are actually movable parts. Now we've got our SVG in Blender, we've imported it, and what I want to do is extrude these items. As you can see, these items are all single files, but I want them to join. I want them to become one. So right click, click join, and now it'll become one item. This will make the process of enlarging it and moving it around a little bit easier. I push G to move. So I could have selected both of those, so you can as well, the two black parts, and join those so that they both move when you extrude them out at the same time. That's up to you. Go to the data properties. We're going to extrude now. Go to the data properties. See, there are quite a few drop down menus, and you want to go to geometry. Go to extrude, and you're going to have to play with this. Play around with it because your size might be different to mine. So just play with it, get it to the right height you want it. Now what I'm going to do, and this requires a step, is I want to select all of the colored spaces. Instead of enlarging them individually, I want to enlarge them all at once. So to do that, select it all and hold Alt when you change the value. And you'll see when you hold Alt, they'll all move all at the same time. If you don't hold Alt, it'll only enlarge the last item you've clicked. So you've basically got a 3D icon now, or you should be here at this point. Now what we want to do is select it all, hold Shift, and make sure that you click the outside, so it'll become like a lighter orange. So Shift, and then click the outside, the black part. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want them all to move around when I rotate or move up and down, and I don't need to select it all every time. So what you're going to do is right click it, go down to parent, and you want to parent the object. And then you're going to go object, set origin, and set project origin. So everything should move together now. And now I'm going to rotate it. To rotate it, you select R, and we want to rotate it on X axis, so we push X, and we want to type in 90 for 90 degrees. So that looks good. Now I'm just going to position in the middle and push it up a bit so that it's kind of floating in the air. Just a trick when you want to move it, G is to move, and then press Z, Y, or X to move on your required axes. And this will just make it easier to move exactly where you want to put it. The other option is you can go into Properties tab and just, put in the values on the X and the Y axis. Okay, now we're going to just change the render settings. We need to change the render cycles or the render settings from Eevee to render cycles. And the reason we're doing that is because of the type of light we are using. And it's generally pretty good for still images. So render settings, just leave the render and viewport, change the denoising, select that. I'm not going to go too much into the render settings, as I think there are better videos on YouTube that you can watch, but these are just basic settings so that I can get through the process and just kind of show you how to make the icon and render using very basic settings. And what I'm doing now, I just want to make this a square, so 180 by 180, and just up the resolution to 150%. I am running a 2012 MacBook Pro with upgraded 12 gigs RAM and SSD. Otherwise, everything is pretty old, and you'll see my render. My import or viewport renders will take a while, and it is. You just have to bear with me. Hopefully your computer is a little bit better. So now what we're going to do is create the lights. Shift A, select pane, S to scale, G and Z axes, and slide it up to about where you want it to be above the icon, 3D icon. Now we're going to go to the properties, and we're going to change this. We're going to create a new one, change it to emissions panel, which is basically the light panel, and we're going to go and click there and change to diffuse. Actually, you won't see anything now because we haven't. Our viewpoint is just solid at the moment. And what we're going to do now, because we want to see the light, we're going to go down to the bottom of the panel and just try and get this icon to display, then right click and go to vertical. And the reason we're doing this is to see the solid on the left and our almost complete render on the right. So it shows us the lighting and shadows, etc., etc. So as you can see in these viewports, what you do in the one will affect the other, but you can view them at different angles in each of the ports, and you can split your scene into multiple. So let's say you could split it up horizontally and have 4. So what I'm going to do, I'm just making this light a little bit stronger. I think 2 or 3 should be right. I'm just going to move the light where I think is right. As you can see, I'm just going to rotate it, but I've done it wrong here. I want to go to the side view, tap on the axes. Now push R to rotate, and it will rotate it on this axis. So position it as you like it. Okay, we're gonna add a camera now. So Shift A to add the camera. Shift A to add the camera. We want to move it, so G on the Z axis to move it up. Then push G and Y to move it on the Y axis. And just kind of, move it where you think is right. Now click to view into the camera. And you can push G and use your mouse to kind of like move it into position. As you can see, it's a little bit off to the right, so I just need to change these values here, the degree, Y and X axes. Just what you want to do here is just kind of, move it where you want it to be. Okay, now that we've got the camera set up, we're going to create the light box behind the icon. Helps with the light and shadows. So just go Shift A, create the plane, make it big enough to fit into the camera area so that you don't see the edges and that kind of thing. Now what you're going to do is push tab to get into edit mode. Once you're in edit mode, select the edge selector or just push 2 on your numpad. Click, push E to extrude, hold down the Z key so that you extrude on the Z axis. Make sure that you're viewing in the camera view so that you can see where you should extrude to so that it fills up your whole screen. Now what you're going to do is with the edge selector, select the edge, go to modifier and add a modifier, the bevel modifier. That's where you can always change it without it being kind of a final thing. So if you don't like what it looks like, you can always come back and change it. Very easy. So just play with the settings, make sure it's the best one. You can follow my settings. So as you can see, the lighting bounces off the back quite nicely. There are no straight edges. This is why it's good to have a light box. What I'm going to do quickly is just modify the camera a bit, change the focal length, and just try and get everything into the frame better, zoom in and that kind of thing. So now the camera's in a better position, you can change it however you want. Now what we want to do is just make it that in this viewport it only renders what we want it to see. Push Control and B and just get it into position, drag around the area that you are rendering, and there you go. It only renders that area, which is quite a handy little trick. So this is another trick, a little lighting trick, especially if you want to animate this. And just have your light source selected and then push G and then Y and Y. And what it'll do is it'll lock it to the Y axis and then lock it to your gradient that you had. So as you can see, you could animate this in and out. But I won't be doing that because my computer is very, very slow. Now what I'm going to do is just rotate the little icon. Push R and R again, and then it kind of like swivels on the middle orbit. So it's a little bit better than having to like go into RX, RY, and RZ. Here it'll just swivel how you want it using your mouse. Also a nice little trick. I'm just changing my light up a little bit more. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the material. So let's go into the glass material, and we want to change this. Rename it glass. Go to surface and change it to glass. Pretty simple. What I haven't mentioned here, that there is a roughness panel on the right, and this will make it either super see-through or frosty. And if you're not seeing the glass, go into render settings, go down to film, click transparency or transparent. Just click that transparent. You can see it changes already, but this is going to severely affect your computer's render capabilities, but it looks super cool. But like I said, render settings, go onto YouTube, there are tons of videos of people who have a lot more knowledge of this. Yeah, as you can see, I've left out the black bit in the middle, and all you got to do is just go in there, select it, and choose the same. Properties, I'm just going to play around with the color here, just change, make it a little bit darker like the icon was originally. So what we're going to do is just change the lightbox material, because it's a little bit shiny at the moment. So we're going to go in there, rename it to lightbox material. You can name it whatever you want, and then what I'm going to do is go to surface and change it to diffuse. Just kind of takes away the shine. I was thinking of changing these colors and making them shiny, but once you render it, you will see it's a little bit shiny anyway. The light really comes through. So there's a little trick that you can do to make the edges look a bit better on the glass. And so what I'm going to do is just go into modifier, and make sure that it's the bulb that you are trying to change, the black part or the glass part, and go into edge split. And what it'll do is just give it a little bit of an angle on your glass. So another tip that we can do is just to kind of like make this glass a little bit rounder. So go into data properties, look for the bevel option, and just be careful because it's super sensitive. We want to try and make it a little bit round on the edges, but like I said, it is so sensitive, and you'll see now. So let's just put it in there. Now you see, very sensitive. So play around with it. As you can see, 0.00. It gives it like a bubble look, and I quite like it. You don't need to do this, but yeah, it's got like a cartoony effect, which I quite like. Yeah, so just play around with it and get it to how you'd like it. I'm just going to do a final, just a few tweaks here, playing with the color and the lighting, changing the diffuse background, making it a little bit darker. Yeah. So when you render it out, just go to the top left. There should be a render. Click on the render. Start the render process. Make sure that you've changed it to cycles and you've got the transparency underform selected so that you actually see the glass and the reflection and all of that. Again, if you're struggling with that, go onto YouTube and check it out. Once the rendering process has been completed, there's the window, and go click on image and save as. You can save it as whatever you want. I would recommend PNG and or TIFF. I'm going to do PNG here, and I'm going to take off the compression. I don't need a render copy or anything like that, and I'm just going to save it. And yeah, that is it. Obviously you can take this into Photoshop and really play around with it, add more lighting and that kind of thing, but I think this is good enough for me. And really you can take any SVG, bring it in here, do the same thing, and get a super cool effect. You can definitely comment below, say what I've done wrong, or maybe how I can better. Maybe there's something that you'd like me to try and do, or a different tutorial. Give me some ideas, that'd be great. Alright, so if this video has helped you in any way and you want to see more of it, you know what to do. Just give it a like, ring the bell, subscribe, and have a lekker one. Ciao.